You have been warned.
We are live.
All right. Well, thank you for joining, everyone. Welcome to the Runway Roundtable. I'm joined by four wonderful gentlemen here. I'm GDK. I've got JMD across from the table from me, and my name is Jeff.
My name is Jeff.
The other two are behind the scenes. One is Paul. He is the one being the operator, and he's watching after Ronan, my son. So if you hear anything in the background, that's probably him making his opinions known.
Right, and Ronan is 8
Mo-
years old, or 8 months old.
8 months
You,
old.
you introduced him as a gentleman, but he's
Aspiring one, then I guess.
aspiring gentleman.
Look what you
yes.
did, Elon. Convinced everyone to bring their kids to work.
Mhm. Gotta start him young.
We love it.
All right, what we got, Paul?
All right, let's kick it off with some current events. Today, the Doge team was hanging out with Fox, and they were breaking down what was going on, all the discoveries that they've made. So if you guys want to react to that, we can. We can kick it off with that. Let me pull that up real quick.
The goal is 2 trillion, right, for savings.
I think it's 2 trillion. It's at least over a trillion, I'm sure. Shocking they're able to get that much, and it doesn't look like it's hard.
It's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, well, we're sitting at like what, 6 or 7 trillion in spending every year right now.
Having us and
Less than 1% of our
thanks for
debt.
having us and doing this. I know there's a lot of interest in this. You know, first let me start with you, Elon. What are the budgetary savings goals, and how much do you think you've achieved so far?
Our goal is to reduce the deficit by $1 trillion. From a nominal deficit of 2 trillion to try to cut the deficit in half to 1 trillion, or looked at it in total federal spending to drop the federal spending from 7 trillion to 6 trillion. We want to reduce the spending by eliminating waste and fraud, reduce the spending by 15%, which seems really quite achievable. The government is not efficient, and there's a lot of waste and fraud. So we feel confident that a 15% reduction can be done without affecting any of the critical government services.
I'm going to talk to all the guys.
If not making it better.
I'm going to talk to all the guys here about the specifics, but for you, what's the most astonishing thing you've found out in this process?
The sheer amount of waste and fraud in the government. It is astonishing. It's mind-blowing. We routinely encounter wastes of $1 billion or more, casually. For example, like the simple survey that was literally a 10-question survey that you could do with SurveyMonkey, cost you about $10,000. The government was being charged almost $1 billion for that.
For just the survey?
$1 billion for a simple online survey, do you like the national park? And then there appeared to be no feedback loop for what would be done with that survey. So the survey would just go into nothing. It was like insane.
You technically are a special government employee, and you're supposed to be 130 days. Are you going to continue past that, or do you think that's what you're going to do? Or?
Well, I think we will have accomplished most of the work required to reduce the deficit by $1 trillion within that time frame.
So in that time frame, 130
Yes.
days. And the process is a report at some point, at 100 days? Or?
Not really a report. We are cutting the waste and fraud in real time. So every day that passes, our goal is to reduce the waste and fraud by $4 billion a day, every day, 7 days a week. And so far, we are succeeding.
And I'm going to talk to the specifics, but there obviously are Doge critics who are reading all kinds of stuff. Obviously, lawmakers on the other side of the aisle are attacking you, and they characterize the approach as this: fire, ready, and then aim. And how do you approach that? How do you respond to that?
Well, I do agree that we actually want to be careful in the cuts. So we want to measure twice, if not thrice, and cut once. Actually, that is our approach. They may characterize it as shooting from the hip, but it is anything but that. Which is not to say that we don't make mistakes. If we were to approach this with the standard of making no mistakes at all, that would be like saying someone in baseball's got to bat 1,000.
So this is a 30-minute clip.
Yeah,
but
I thought that was just like a highlight or
I
something.
thought it was 30 seconds. But just, those surveys, man, I sure would love to take one of those.
I mean, for the government, for Elon to be able to casually find people wasting $1 billion of taxpayer money, speaks to the adage of government tax finds a reason to spend for what they can tax. They're gonna find if they can get the money out of you, they'll put it to use somewhere. Oh yeah, see, look how upset Ronan is. He hates all of this government spending.
Come on, Ronan.
All right. Ronan he's overtaking me. I'm being overtaken. I'm being overpowered.
Yep, he's a
Let me see
fighter.
if he's better with you. I think we'll try for a multitask.
All right.
So you used the word casually, but Elon was trying to make the point there that it is by no means casual.
Well, that's what he's saying is he can find it so easily. It's like just kick over a rock and then you can find the wasteful spending.
Yes.
And now the wasteful spendings, what's being cut, that's essentially going to carry over into the next years, right? So next year we won't have these wasteful spendings as well. Is that right? So essentially it's like a residual savings every
But-
year.
Yeah, I mean, supposedly it would carry over into the future years until somebody brings it back slowly but surely. The heads of departments could add to their budgets and bring it back. But I think that's the general idea is to reduce spending now and keep it low.
Well, he's also talking about how they're trying to measure twice, measure thrice, to make sure that they don't cut anything necessary. And while I appreciate that, at the same time, if they did do that and they'd have to rebuild it from the ground up, you can see a good use for that because they can actually build some better systems and whatnot and just not let it get so decayed and something that you can actually update it periodically. Because most of these systems were built back in like the 70s and 80s
Yeah.
with technology from back then. And we have leagues better programs and applications that we can be using.
Yeah, and a couple things about that. The government systems were built with lots of approvals needed, right? So you pass something to one person for a signature, then it has to go to the next person. And it has
Well,
to
yeah.
have.
Remember
you
the
know.
whole Obamacare website debacle? Like they put out this thing and it was not functional their first round because they have to get it approved, and then once it's approved, they implement it, and if something's wrong, they go through another review process of what's built, but they check over everything 8 different times rather than just the one thing because there's no incentive to be fast and productive. They got to but there's a lot of crap they'll catch if there's errors, so they'll take their time and make it take years.
And more money because it
Yeah.
started off as like I believe it was a $700,000 budget, and it ended up being like $2 billion.
Yeah,
if I
something
remember
like that
correctly.
went way over budget.
Yeah, my experience with government is they think that they're so unique and so special that they have to create their own computer systems and their own software, and they end up spending way more money on the personnel and the less talented personnel than they could get out in the private sector than they would if they just outsourced those systems.
Yeah, maybe you could have made an argument for them needing specialized systems back in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
Because we just didn't have the development like we do now. And they have things that they deal with like police records and whatnot that maybe they needed something special. But nowadays, we already have technology. You just need to update it and make sure it's secure, which is
Yeah.
always the hardest part is making sure anything's secure.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
It'll be also interesting to see how they're showing in real time all the savings that they're making. Will we see the same real time spendings like when this is all said and done? Because that would be a good way to keep track of it as well.
Well, if the Trump administration is serious about trying to integrate blockchains and whatnot, then they could do the entire budget and have it easily accessible. So everyone says, "Oh, my tax money was deposited in their accounts April 15th, and then I can see where the money came out of that wallet or the account and where it went to." So, I mean, hopefully we're going to finally get an itemized receipt for what our government spends the money on. You can still find some of that stuff, but it's all in all PDFs and whatnot and buried under a bunch of accounting lingo and jargon and whatnot. So it's not easy for the average person to see it. But if we can get, some data visualization on the spending, which would be possible with blockchains, it could really transform how we understand what's going inside of our government.
Yeah. All right.
I pulled
What
up
you got here?
the Doge live tracker. Just every week we're looking at this together just to keep track and monitor the progress made. I don't remember the number last week. Does anybody remember what that was?
115.
115?
I
Okay.
believe, yeah, 115.
All right, not too bad.
I just, there's something about this that really gets to me. The way they say tax dollars saved, they're trying to tell us that our tax dollars are being saved, but it doesn't matter. It's not our tax dollars. It's just the federal spending. I mean, yeah, we're all paying taxes, but that's just bullshit anyway, right? The fact that we have to pay taxes, the fact that supposedly our part of our income finances the government when they can just print the damn money themselves. What's the point? Why are they trying to fool us? I feel like they're trying to fool us by using that terminology.
Well, it's because they're doing what anyone that's trying to do is delay the costs. Like politicians want to have all these programs, but they don't want to tax you for it right now, so they try and kick the can down the road, which is what inflation is. It's a slow hidden tax. And also all the borrowing. So they borrow the money, and the payment's going to come due in 4 years or 10 years, whenever. And some of them are like, oh, I'm not going to be in office. Not my problem. So they just kick the can down the road and let it be the next person's problem. They grab their bag in the Congress and then bolt.
Yeah. I guess.
I heard an interesting perspective about this from a Bitcoin miner at the Mining Disrupt conference. He essentially made the point that this money, if they really wanted to save the tax dollars, then they should burn this money, because it's essentially it's increasing the inflation. It's contributing to inflation, and even though if you refund people through tax returns, it's still contributing to inflation. So they're saying if you really wanted to eradicate that, the best thing to do would to be burn it, for it to be burned. But our money system isn't built like that. It's a broken system.
Well, that's why I think instead of trying to refund us, just give us a tax credit for $5,000, and that way, and
Just end the taxes altogether.
what's the two permanent things in the world? Death and taxes.
Well,
So
they're already taxing us through inflation, so just end the income tax altogether.
right, yeah, you're not wrong, but what can they actually get done? And they're doing a lot, but I don't think they're going to get rid of everything that they are able to. If they at least, decimate it, and I mean that in the literal sense, or it would be a marked improvement.
So next up, if you guys want to touch on one of these takes here, Tyler Winklevoss. Let me pull that up.
Maybe we should have a mask on Ronan to hide his identity. Uh-huh. What do you think of taxes, Ronan?
Oh, he's going to be paying for them for the rest of his life.
I guess if they did do away with the income tax, that would kind of put you out of a job, wouldn't it, Kyle?
No, it would make me have to change my revenue stream, but I still have a job as an accountant. There's the three professions that have been around for millennia.
Yeah.
So Tyler Winklevoss said, commenting on what the FDIC says here. Do you want to read this, John?
Sure. What am I reading? Am I reading the fine print? FDIC says banks can engage in crypto activities without prior approval. Is that all you want me to read?
That's a pretty big, stark difference between the prior administration.
Tyler Winklevoss says, "This is what we voted for. Thank you to the Trump administration for your leadership in turning banking rails back on for crypto companies. Promises made, promises kept." So
what does this mean to the everyday crypto enthusiast or company that's involved in this space?
Well, so crypto companies have been debanked. That's what the whole choke point 2.0 has been. Uh, choke point 2.0 or 1.0 was when they debanked the software companies back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And isn't that right?
No, I thought that
Choke point 1.0 was what?
was like 2025, not 2015 or so.
Oh, maybe it was then. I don't know, but it had something to do with the software companies, right? And choke point 2.0 was when they debanked the crypto companies. So by debanking, that means that they prevented them from having bank accounts in regular banks. So lots of companies were setting up their bank accounts to start a legitimate business, even though it was a crypto. I mean, it was a legitimate crypto business, but in general, crypto businesses are legitimate businesses. And the banking industry, led by the FDIC, basically told banks that they couldn't work with companies that were involved in crypto, or they could lose their licenses. So this
Yeah,
is
it was they couldn't ban it outright, so they just made it a regulatory nightmare and basically prevented anyone from moving forward. So, I mean, we don't have any laws saying it's illegal or anything like that. So there's no way these regulators should have been able to stop the progress in this industry. But this just proves the power that regulation has over our industry when it shouldn't. No one voted for these things, and yet the regulators can squash things they don't like.
Do you think we'll see new companies sprout up from this change happening?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's been stomped on for the last 10 years, and so now that we're finally getting the door open, there's no way there's not going to be more companies launching.
So we'll probably see a lot more companies using crypto or tokens or cryptocurrency for payment options. I'm thinking online.
maybe, yeah, it's a good possibility. Another thing that'll probably happen is more companies will. So during the debanking, during the choke point 2.0, a lot of crypto companies, they decided to move overseas. They started to register their operations and register their businesses overseas. So this might also attract those companies back into the United States.
I wonder what will happen with the legitimate companies that ended up moving during that whole ICO boom that left the country because they weren't able to, work here. If some of those will be coming back, or if we'll see like a rise of the previous, the 2017 ICOs, if we'll see any of those come back, or
I don't know. Maybe it's possible.
right.
Yeah, but personally, I'm not too concerned about all those other. There are a few crypto companies that I think have some.
Ronan's got a lot to say on this subject.
He does have some. A few cryptocurrencies, let's say it that way. I don't mean crypto companies. There's lots of crypto companies out there, but there are a few cryptocurrencies out there that have some legitimacy and will become widely used. But those others, you're talking about the ICOs for all those cryptocurrencies that were created. Most of those are just pump and dumps.
Yeah.
Not gonna have any value anyway. All right.
All right, let's move on to the next topic. What do you guys think about? Well, here's Tyler Winklevoss once more. Since we're on his current thread, let's touch on this. David Sachs, the crypto czar. Who wants to read this?
I'll read it. So huge. This is how we.
Sorry, go ahead and read David Sachs first.
Big win for crypto. FDIC Gov is following the USOCC's lead in removing reputational risk as a factor in the bank's supervision. Reputational risk may sound good in theory, but it was defined as the potential that negative publicity regarding an institution's business practices, whether true or not, will cause a decline in the customer base, costly litigation, or revenue rejections. In practice, this vague and subjective criteria was used to justify the debanking of lawful crypto businesses through the quantitative, not based on the potential for untrue stories. Thank you, Senator Tim Scott, for your leadership on this via the Firm Act.
Right. So to that, he responded, huge. This is how we prevent Operation Choke Point 3.0. So is this legislation essentially the clarity and the guidelines that we needed so that they couldn't continue, essentially wielding this, weapon of, of lack of clarity where they could essentially interpret the law however they wanted, whenever they wanted?
I'm sure they'll probably still interpret some things the way they want it, but at least this way, it'll be less restrictions.
As long as you have regulatory agencies, you will have regulations, and they will continue to regulate. You notice this is the same thing. If you think about, for example, any sports regulatory authority, you notice how the rules continue to change in sports. Why do they need to change? Because somebody decided that they needed a regulatory. Well, if you have a regulatory agency, then they feel like they have a job to do. And if they're not continuously changing the rules, they feel like they're not doing their jobs. So I don't have any comments about this Firm Act because I know absolutely nothing about it. That's the first time I've heard that name. I would love to know what it stands for because those Washington bureaucrats are so good at coming up with acronyms. But it sounds like, Paul, that what David Sachs is saying is that, yes, that to answer your question, there's going to be some restrictions on how much change can be made.
Yeah. Let's find out what Firm stands for. Okay. It stands for the Fairness and Regulation of Markets Act.
Oh.
So,
A
yeah.
proposed piece of legislation in the United States aimed at reforming how federal regulators oversee financial institutions. Specifically, it seeks to limit the use of subjective criteria like reputational risk by agencies such as the FDIC, the OCC, when supervising banks. The goal is to prevent regulators from denying services or taking actions against lawful businesses based on vague or politically motivated standards, promoting a focus on objective financial risks instead. This has been a point of discussion, particularly in relation to industries like cryptocurrency, where some argue such criteria have been used to restrict access to banking services. All right.
Cool. Honestly,
So it's an act, not a law.
mm-hmm.
So I guess that's cool that it's going through the process. I'd like to wait to celebrate until it gets through the process and is actually a done deal.
Correct. Let's read some of the comments here. Brun and Biddy says this is a quiet but massive shift. Reputational risk was always a loophole used not to protect consumers but to protect incumbents. Operation Choke Point 2.0 wasn't about risk; it was about narrative control. And we're here. We have Wendy O. I love that we can say Operation Choke Point 2.0 and not get banned on social media anymore. Yeah, that was a big conspiracy back then, right? Now we have learned, wait 6 months and conspiracy theories will become fact. All right, so moving on.
Moving on.
Pick your topic. We've got quite a few bookmarked here.
Wait, what's that? Go back one.
The Alex Wong?
The DC Drano. What's that? Drano. Remember in 2018 when Trump got impeached for a perfect phone call to Zelensky? Impeached for a perfect phone call to Zelensky. Turns out a low-level staffer on the call was a CIA rat who set Trump up. Same deal with Signalgate. Someone in the DNI or SDEX team, SecDef's team, is a CIA rat who set this up. Deep state pulling the same tricks. All right, well, I saw Zelensky and Trump in the first line and thought that might be interesting. What the heck is Signalgate?
That's the thing where some journalist got added to a secure messaging thing. Although I saw a video, I saw a video of someone saying it was a hoax. I didn't get a chance to watch it yet.
Yeah.
Let's react to it in real time. So apparently they were having, conversations on a encrypted, app Signal.
Yeah.
But these were, these are tax, these are essentially elected officials on taxpayer dime. And
There
I
you
guess,
go again.
once again, they're wondering whether or not that is the right way to communicate. But let's get a little bit more insight into this.
Yeah, Trump should have communicated through a server he had kept at his house.
Yeah. So that person that I just read the tweet of was suggesting that a CIA rat is the one that added the journalist by accident.
Yeah, possibly. And people are really trying to make a big deal out of this. There's been far worse conversations had on private chats during the previous administration that the media didn't care about at all. So I think this is an attempt to undermine the current administration. But it does bring up an important point. I would love to hear Maddie's take on this. We will have to get that next week. Moving on. We've got the Bitcoin historian, Pete Rizzo. Let's see what this is about.
Pete needs to come here. We're supposed to do a Cypherpunk episode with Pete, or series of episodes with Pete Rizzo. So, Pete, if you're listening, we'd love to have you here in Naples in our studio.
Would be really cool. We've got quite an all-star lineup of guests in the near future. It's going to be fun. Stick around. You'll learn. And if you're ever in Naples, come to Bitcoin Day I.O. where you get to meet these people in real person. Who wants to read this one? I said in real person, in real life.
Go. What do you want us to read, Pete? Or
Put it into context, right? So
Trump posts something here that says, Senator Cynthia Lummis is an American first warrior for the wonderful people of Wyoming. As a chair of the Senate Banking Subcommittee on Digital Assets, Cynthia is working closely with me to make America the crypto capital of the world. Cynthia is fighting tirelessly to grow the economy, cut taxes and regulations, secure our border, defend our always under siege Second Amendment, strengthen our incredible military vets, and put our great farmers, ranchers, and energy producers first. Man, I wish I could do a Trump impersonation, but I just can't. Senator Cynthia Lummis has my complete and total endorsement for re-election. She will never let you down. Yes, and Pete Rizzo, the Bitcoin historian, said President Trump just endorsed Senator Lummis for her Bitcoin advocacy. We are working closely to make America the crypto capital of the world. So this is cool. Senator Lummis is definitely a champion for our industry, and I had the pleasure of meeting her in person in Nashville last year, and listening to her speak a couple times on stage and in a more private setting, and she definitely understands crypto and the crypto the use cases for cryptocurrency. She understands Bitcoin very well, and she is a tremendous advocate for Bitcoin, and she was behind the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve Act. She should definitely get reelected.
And what's her background? Like, where does she come? Like,
I don't know anything. I don't know anything more about her background.
Well, she is apparently I believe, senator of Wyoming, and she has been very proactive with regards to the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve Act, pushing for America, for our institutions to finally get on board and to, drive legislation that's favorable towards that. But let's learn a little bit more right now. Let's see how and when she entered the Bitcoin space, and perhaps she had some previous work that we're unaware of. But she's been at Bitcoin conferences advocating for Bitcoin for years now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to know if she's part of the reason why Wyoming has such good Bitcoin incentives, or
Oh, I'm sure she has a lot to do with that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure she has a lot to do with the state legislation that has been so favorable for Bitcoin.
I've got Grok pulling up some information. I'm going to have it boil it down to bullet points so we can read through it pretty quickly. You want to grab this, John?
Yeah, so let's see. Senator Lummis was born September 1954. She's was the Wyoming State Treasurer from 1999 to 2007, U.S. Representative for Wyoming from 2009 to 2017, elected U.S. Senator in 2020, sworn in 2021, first woman to represent Wyoming in the Senate. Introduction to Bitcoin. She discovered Bitcoin in 2013. Wow. Via her future son-in-law, Will Cole.
Shout out Will Cole.
Yeah, good job, Will. Will introduced the concept over a kitchen table conversation in Star Valley, Wyoming. Initially skeptical, she couldn't hold. Oh, initially, I'm sorry, I skipped a couple words there. Initially skeptical about a digital asset she couldn't hold, but intrigued by its potential. She bought her first Bitcoin in 2013 for about $330, purchased two more in 2014, and in 2021 disclosed owning between $100,000 and $250,000 worth of Bitcoin. So she's an early investor, and let's see. So concerned about the debt and inflation. As a debt and inflation hawk. Oh, she's known as a debt and inflation hawk. Saw Bitcoin's fixed 21 million coin supply as a hedge against fiat currency devaluation, and compared it to Wyoming's natural resources, gold, Trona, as a store of value. That's enough. We got that background.
I like to hear those stories about people in places like this learning about this technology over dinner or over just a casual conversation. It seems that a lot of people learn about this in that manner.
Yeah, I mean that is the most likely way that people are going to learn about it. I think if there's enough of us out there who are talking about it over family dinners,
right?
But I guess Will Cole was lucky enough to have a willing listener and willing learner. I know that I've been at some family dinners where people, I mention it and people just really don't want to talk about it. So I guess it goes both ways. But that is cool. Yes, and it is another reason why all of us as Bitcoiners who really understand and believe in the technology. It's a good idea for us to talk about it whenever we can, whenever we're in any kind of a social setting, and just we don't have to be like, strict evangelistic Christians who want to push it on you. But if we can bring it up and we see that we have somebody that's willing to listen or talk about it or learn about it, then, it's an important thing to do. Right?
Absolutely. What's up, y'all? Producer Paul, PBX. Just on this subject real quick, that is such an important point. At the Mining Disrupt conference yesterday, I learned a bit more about mining, right? And the difference between mining and hashing. And this is something I wasn't aware of before. But I thought to myself, okay, once I learned that difference, I got to tell people about this, right? So we're at Whole Foods after, getting ready to head back to Naples. and I'm waiting to use the restroom, and there's a gentleman waiting next to me, and I said, "Hey, you know about Bitcoin?" And he said, "Oh yeah, I know about Bitcoin." I'm like, right on. I'm like, "Are you mining Bitcoin?" "Oh no, I can't mine Bitcoin." I'm like, "Yeah, it's it's a bit intimidating at first, but I found out at the Mining Disrupt conference that there's these very user-friendly mining devices called BitAxes, and there's quite a few others. And the reason they're so special and interesting is because anybody with barely any technical knowledge can essentially start mining Bitcoin and support the protocol. And why does that matter? Why should we even be talking about this? It's because apparently, if we're not mining Bitcoin, we're not actually facilitating the decentralized nature of Bitcoin. And if you like Bitcoin, the coin, and the philosophy, you have to support the network. Because if the network gets hijacked by a few special interests that essentially take up all the hash power, they can start censoring transactions. So if the pools become too centralized, which is what we're seeing now, right? Foundry, Antminer, quite a few others essentially control like 95% of the hash rate. And that's because every miner, in order to have more luck, right, and to have a higher chance at mining Bitcoin successfully, they contribute their hash power to this pool, which now has a much higher, chance of striking a block. And when you strike a block, you get what, 3.4?
3.125.
My man, 3.125 Bitcoin. So essentially, when you're mining the Bitcoin blockchain, you are solving problems in real time. These problems that all the computers are racing to solve, and whoever solves that problem first unlocks the block. And if there's that 3.125 Bitcoin in there, then you get to have it. And it turns out, in the last 2 weeks, from what I heard, 2 BitAxe miners, they're miners the size of a cell phone, have struck a block. Right. And I just thought, how cool is that? So I had to tell this guy, I'm like, hey, that's essentially like buying a lottery ticket and having it, having a chance at winning the lottery every day for the rest of your life. Right. One-time investment. But here's why it matters. If everyone had one of those, that would mean there's now 1 million more nodes that are not centralized, that are not, part of this pool, because you're actually mining, right? You're not going to point your hash power of that tiny device to a pool. It just doesn't make sense. So that's one conversation that we should also be having at the dinner table now, is not just Bitcoin number go up, but the blockchain in and of itself.
And the more miners, like smaller miners, we see win these hash, then it incentivizes the people that are forced to join these pools to go do it on their own. I would think.
Well,
Maybe.
you would hope.
Well, so Bitcoin mining is a completely 100% random thing. So it doesn't matter if you're pointed to a pool or not pointed to the pool. Your chance of winning that lottery is 1 in, or depending on the amount of hash power. So it's 1 hash in whatever it is the total hash rate is, right? So the total hash rate is something like 6 or 7 exahash, which is what an exa is 10 to the 16th power, I believe. So I mean, it's a small chance of winning no matter what. So you missed a very important part of that point that was made yesterday, Paul, and that is that if you can point to a pool, that doesn't matter. What matters is the
templates
that you're
using.
running a node. So you're not mining unless you're running a node. Remember, that's what Bob Burnett said.
Correct.
You're not mining unless you're running a node and creating your own mempool. Right, so you got to run a node. You got to have a mempool that is basically.
Yeah, I didn't want to get too far into the weeds
transactions
because most people.
But you can point to a pool. But the important thing, at least as far as I understand it, is the big pools like the Ant Pool via BTC, the other big pools that are out there that everybody's saying are centralizing everything, is that when you point to them, you're using their node and their mempool and their templates.
Right. And their templates require you to KYC if you want to point your ASICs, to a hash on that pool. So essentially they know who you are, where that hash rate is coming from. And if they wanted to blacklist you, they could. right? And we're not saying that they're going to, but usually when there is a chance, it's just a matter of when, not if. And so I just thought this is a conversation that seems technical, but it's not, because all these other things that we love about Bitcoin are essentially going to go away if we don't maintain the decentralization of the network. And this is the biggest threat to Bitcoin in 2025.
Yeah.
So there is a company that's solving this, and that company is Ocean. Mr. JMD's rocking the shirt right now. Datum. That is their decentralized mining template mempool solution to this problem. Yeah, no, I think I'll make sure that when I go back to the production station that I get a close up on it. But Datum is essentially giving you the best of both worlds, where you can mine and point your ASIC hash rate. You can point your hash power towards a pool. And the reason you want to do that, it's like when you're in an office and you want to do a lottery ticket, right? If you buy a lottery ticket yourself, your chances are what they are. But if you pool your funds with your, all your employees, all your coworkers on an office floor, now your funds increase, and you can purchase more tickets. And you, although you might, you have to split the revenue if you win, at least you have a higher likelihood of winning, because now there's much more people involved. And so it's the same thing with mining pools, right? The more hash power that pools together, the more likely you are to successfully unlock a block. And therefore, people then, have a more consistent payout. But the thing with these current pools is that they, because of the SEC guidelines and whatnot, are forced to KYC, AML, all of their miners. And that is a problem, right? Like we think that at the end of the day, privacy is something that we have foregone for convenience, but we forget that without privacy, you can't consent. That's really what it boils down to. Political consent is something that will start disappearing when privacy is gone, right? Because if there's an unpopular political opinion, and there is no privacy, eventually these algorithms are going to start shadow banning you, and you name it. Things like that are going to have a real world impact. So privacy is key. That's what the cypherpunks understood. And, with Bitcoin and all that, philosophy, all, the freedom technology, the borderless money, we love all that, but none of that matters if they compromise the actual protocol on the back end, right? So although it sounds intimidating, SHA-256 and all this stuff, like it's a new language, but it's really simple. It's and the way you can support and prevent that from happening is by joining the protocol. When we were talking to Samson Mao at Mining Disrupt, and he said the way he got involved, right? He was a computer gamer. The way he got into Bitcoin is just because he read it, downloaded it, and realized, oh my gosh, that's all I got to do. Like, there's nobody else I got to talk to mine Bitcoin. Like, it was that easy, right? So, like, this is actually powerful. Anybody can join. Anybody can mine. Right, and with a little device like BitAxe, that's an educational device. Give it to your kids, whatever. We're not sponsored by them, but I'm inspired by them. So I just wanted to touch on that. Cynthia Loomis is doing the Lord's work. But if we don't protect the chain itself by becoming active participants, then we're outsourcing that to someone else, and eventually it gets centralized.
Maybe we could get BitAxe to sponsor us. If you're out there listening, BitAxe, we'd love to talk about you every single episode.
That would be sweet. John, Maddie mentioned on one of our last episodes that he would like to start giving away a BitAxe at all of our meetups. So that would be super cool. JMD and Maddie host the Naples Bitcoin and Blockchain meetup. So if you're around and you're in town and you want a chance to win one, show up.
Yeah. All right. That'd be cool. When he gives me the directive, I'll take care of it.
So I'm going to go ahead and switch to the next topic.
But wait, first I
want
want to give a shout out to BTC Sessions.
Oh yeah.
So BTC Sessions on YouTube and on Twitter. He recently did a tutorial on how to connect your BitAxe to Datum so that you're actually mining Bitcoin with your little BitAxe. I don't know what the hash rate on the BitAxe is.
I don't know either, but
like 20.
It's so cool that that's an option now.
20 terahash or something
Right.
like that. If that, I don't know. But anyway, check out BTC Sessions. If you're inspired now after Paul's
Rant
rant to buy a BitAxe, then buy that BitAxe and get on to BTC sessions and
Right.
go through that tutorial to learn how to set it up.
Yep. Super cool guys. We met them at Mining Disrupt in person too. And it was Ben's, the host of BTC sessions. It was his 40th birthday. And he's out there at Mining Disrupt putting in work. I'm like, this guy, what a guy.
Yeah, and they flew to New York today or yesterday to for his birthday party at PubKey.
Cool. Happy belated. I got to say happy birthday in person. So we're all good there. But another fun development that is currently still in discussion, but looking good, is that we might join forces. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
All right, I'm going to pull up the next topic. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat. We'll answer them for you to the best of our ability right here, right now. I'm going to have a little sip of this.
All right, come on, Paul. Doing 2 jobs at once. Good for you. What do you think about that, Jeff? Have you ever done any home Bitcoin mining?
No, not Bitcoin, but I have mined. I have done other mining.
Some shitcoin mining?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've set up
GPU mining?
CPU.
Oh, CPU mining. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
I've
Yeah.
Online, like I probably shouldn't mention the coin,
Well,
but
it doesn't matter. I mean, this is a crypto-friendly podcast.
Okay, so,
we,
yeah.
we can talk about everything.
there's some coin out there, and it paid for the hardware that I used because you can do through a browser, mining through a browser. I guess some people would call it hashing or not necessarily mining, but
Right.
you providing your hash power to this pool, and they would pay out. So it started off well, paid probably like a Raspberry Pi.
Mhm.
I got that connected with a small screen, and I ran it right from there. You could run it from your cell phone or from a regular desktop computer.
Yeah.
And every hour you'd have to reset it. So you had to stay in, and you would you'd essentially just mine for every hour, set a time, or it was about every hour, every 2 hours, depending on what hardware you're using.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Maddie's a big fan of GPU and CPU mining because that's how it got him started, because it's more accessible. Even though, like we were talking about the BitAxe just a minute ago, which is a nice, small, and affordable way to mine Bitcoin, but the chances of winning with that little bit of hash power are much, much smaller than if you go out and buy a $4,000 or $5,000 Bitcoin miner and plug that in that has 200 or 300 terahash per second power. So it's the GPU mining is much more accessible if you can find the right project and the right coins that are going to be profitable for you.
Yeah, and this one ended up tanking, but it's been picking up over the last few days. It's probably up like maybe 100% or so.
Hmm.
So
Nice.
yeah.
All right. Yeah.
But I kind of stopped doing that one.
Yeah.
I should bring it in. It's just on a Raspberry Pi with a tiny 3.5 touchscreen wireless keyboard. Spent
Mhm.
maybe $120, $130,
Yeah.
and I got they dropped me. They would pay out through airdrop, so I essentially got about 5 times the amount that I
Nice.
put in. So it was cool, fun experience. I did it more for the technology to learn how to do it.
Yeah.
Set something up that was different. I didn't see anybody else trying that route. The hash power wasn't as powerful, but it worked.
Good for you. Very nice.
Jeff, I put up this post that you wanted to touch on. Dive in.
Oh yeah, so Cointelegraph has breaking news. President Trump has pardoned BitMEX co-founders Arthur Hayes, Benjamin Dello, and Samuel Reed, who had pled guilty to federal charges including money laundering and violating the Bank Secrecy Act.
Wow, so
I'm not too
First
familiar
it-
with this case. Like, were they charging him because like they weren't doing KYC or something for their clients?
That's a good question. I'm not sure, but the fact that he pardoned them after they pled guilty says a lot, because by not knowing what happened in this case, we don't know if they were just taking the plea to avoid harsher penalties down the line.
Yeah, that's what I would assume they did, is just took a plea bargain. And so Trump is just like, yeah, they brought you under bullshit reasons. We're going to just get rid of that.
Yeah, it would be interesting to learn a little.
I'm seeing some pretty critical comments, interesting comments. Cedric Bow says, so they jail coders like Alexei for Tornado Cash, but pardon BitMEX execs years later. That's not a glitch, it's a feature. Permissionless money is punished, institutional money gets a pass. You want fairness? Then stop asking for permission and start building systems that don't need. Yeah, pretty much. And then here someone says, are they going to help him pump more of his shit coins? Who knows? Lots of opinions.
Oh, wow.
But I would say, all in all, it's a positive, right? What we want is for our industry to stop being attacked and for Web3 innovators to stop being driven overseas, right? If we want to have a flying chance in hell to compete worldwide, we need to stop attacking this industry. Let, like Elon said, let the builders build.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy that he pardoned them. Like, I don't really know their particulars. So I'm assuming they were acting in good faith, but they just couldn't be compliant because of the nature of crypto. That's my assumption, knowing nothing about the case.
That's a good assumption.
Right. But, I mean, yeah, if the previous regulators or whatnot were going after them just to, set examples, then yeah, they should get pardoned. If they were trying their best to be compliant with everything and they were, going to the regulators and asking, how do we do what you guys want? And they just said, figure it out, and then slapped them down when they did it wrong. Then yeah, I'm all for their pardoning.
And based on the reaction of the comments, I mean, you would think that if they're getting pardoned, maybe there's going to be a lot more people that didn't do or weren't, that'll get pardoned as well. So,
Well, and I mean, they're upset that these guys are getting pardoned, but they're executives of this company. But at the same time, you have to be big enough for someone like the president to notice. If you're just one guy that got thrown in jail and, you made an application but no one used it, maybe you were thrown in jail unjustly, but how's he going to know about you? So I don't know anything about the Tornado Cash situation. I know it's a pretty prevalent thing in Bitcoin. People use a bunch. I don't know. Give him time. Maybe he'll get pardoned in like 6 months. Didn't we get Ross Ulbricht pardoned? That did happen, right? Yeah.
That happened. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's going down the list, and maybe he'll get to them eventually. I don't know.
All right, moving on. Let's Kyle, why don't you pick the next topic here? We've got quite a few good ones bookmarked. Chamath.
What makes them good?
Well, they have an interesting perspective, value-added input. Chamath is consistently, it's so funny. He went from being a Democrat to being a thorn in their side.
There was that post about the Canadian healthcare.
Let's do it.
I saw it when there was that video on that feed just there.
Okay, stop me. Is it this one right here?
No. It was like one woman in the camera talking.
Okay, here we go.
No, it was like from their home. That
Here.
one. That one.
All right, cool. I'll pull it up.
Yeah, we can just watch the video. It's only like a minute long, and it's just what everyone that believes in the free market and what that he's trying to warn everyone of when it comes to communism and free healthcare, quote unquote.
Today on How Fucked is Canadian Healthcare, I need an MRI to see if I have a fucking brain tumor. And go ahead, guess when it is. Go ahead, guess. It's in 2026. 2026. My MRI to see if I have a brain tumor is in 2026. It's March 2025 right now. And if you thought this was bad, it's actually worse than you thought, because the appointment where we decided that I need this MRI was in December of last year. So it's not like it's 10 months from now, it's 13 months. It's a 13-month wait to see if I have a brain tumor. At first, I just thought this was a mistake because having an MRI every year is like a monitoring timeline. Like, I already have an MRI every year for my spine tumor, which is why we think maybe I have a brain tumor too. So I was like, okay, they just made a mistake and scheduled this on a monitoring timeline. But no, I called and the clinic was like, yeah, the doctor actually requested that you have it earlier, but this is the next spot we have. We're seeing about 13 months for these brain and spine MRIs. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. Canada, where healthcare is free, but only if you can afford to wait.
So yeah, and don't get sick in Canada. Like if you need anything that isn't like setting a broken bone or something like that, you basically been handed a death sentence. Like there, she'll be dead in a year because she does have that brain tumor, and she has no recourse. Like here in America, yeah, it might cost you $1,000, but you can get it tomorrow. And trying to get enough money, you can solve that. You might have to go to like GoFundMe or something like that. And I don't want that to be the solution, but it is a solution. In Canada, you're screwed. You have to do medical tourism, go somewhere else, fly down to Mexico to get an MRI. Otherwise, tumor's gonna grow. She's gonna get an aneurysm or something, and then she's gonna pass away. And that's absurd.
Is this new? Because I've only ever heard great things about the healthcare system in Canada.
No, this has been known. They just don't talk about it. Like a lot of things with our media, they don't highlight these stories because they don't want it to look bad. Oh no, Canadian healthcare is great, and so they never bring up the problems. But if you talk to Canadians, they'll tell you about the problems like this. I think the only thing they've got really going for them is like their pharmaceuticals, so they get that super cheap. But don't quote me on that one. But yeah, no, if you actually need any medical services, you have to wait over a year. And depending on what it is, she's got a little brain tumor and a spine tumor. These are some things you need to check periodically and not after a year. You got to be doing like monthlies or something like that just to
Right.
track it.
You know, the free market would incentivize doctors, right? Because they're going to be compensated properly. It'll incentivize them to act rapidly, and there's competition. Whereas in communist systems, it's you're waiting in line. Everybody's essentially just given a ticket.
Yeah, one thing that I will say, it can't just be purely profit driven, because then we get to something like we have in our system right now where they're trying to nickel and dime you over everything.
But
Like,
have you heard of Ways to Wellness?
no.
I forget the guy's name. Let me pull him up. It's Brian something. He's doing a new model on healthcare where essentially he's saying like it's not going to cost you more than $500 no matter what you have, because he's treating them outside of the traditional healthcare system. So he says, I cannot accept your insurance, otherwise I will have to charge you an insane amount of money. Right. So
Yeah.
go
Oh no,
ahead.
there's other alternatives. There's like a surgery center in Kansas. I think that's where it is, where they publish all of their prices online. So if you need to get like a appendectomy or hernia repair or something, you can go online and it'll tell you, oh, this is the approximate cost. It's like $3,000, and then you can get this done. We put you up in a hotel, we watch you for your recovery portion, and then we send you home. And yeah, it's still $3K, but if you try to do it at a hospital with or without insurance, that's easily like probably $20,000-$30,000.
Pain.
Sorry. Yeah, I didn't mean to have that play while you were talking. Go ahead. Did you want to finish your point?
No, just that, like, yeah, we need competition, but we also need to have doctors that care about their patients again. I remember listening to some podcast where the doctor started his own clinic, and he said, I took an oath to do no harm, and he included financial harm. So he was looking for systems and ways that he could give his patients cheaper drugs and cheaper procedures and all that type of stuff. And he stopped accepting insurance too, because once you accept the insurance, they've got their claws in you, and you have to do what they tell you to do, or you don't get the insurance money. And so I know I'm finding more and more clinics and whatnot that are just not accepting insurance anymore because they have too many strings attached. So
Exactly. So yeah, pros and cons to all systems, but this guy is onto something. He came from the big pharma industry, and his story is powerful. Watch him on Rogan if you haven't, but I'm just going to play this 18-second clip just to see what they're saying here.
Pain. I have full function. I sleep on it. Doesn't bother me. It's crazy. And I also got a series of injections while I was in Texas from this company, Ways to Well. And it's remarkable. Stem cells are remarkable. It has radical healing properties. Did you see this thing that
Okay.
the Biden administration?
So essentially, he's just talking about his treatment. They're doing ethical stem cell treatment, which is another cool thing, from placenta, right? They're getting their stem cell from placenta, not from aborted fetuses. But anyway, his story on how the regulators have been attacking him relentlessly just because he's launched his own pharmaceutical company to bring down the cost, right? It's insane. So I highly recommend listening. But Mike Benz is doing the Lord's work on multiple areas, just highlighting the corruption, the monopolization. And Kyle, to your point, open market has its issues too. But if it's pure capitalism, those things work themselves out. But if it's crony capitalism, like we're seeing today, we're going to have the same problems essentially. So
I think in like California, there was one guy that needed to get an ambulance, and so he got the ride over there, and they're like, "Oh, it's like $20 or it's like free or something," and then he had to provide his insurance, and because he provided insurance, now he had to pay $1,000 for the ambulance ride because the people who pay insurance cover for the people who don't pay insurance, and so you're basically having free riders on the entire system, and so the people who are currently paying, they're like, "Well, what's the point? If I don't have insurance, I actually get this for free, or it's significantly cheaper." So they're just going to stop. They're just going to cancel their insurance and hop on, and it's just going to be a downward spiral until it collapses.
yeah. So I just saw that Maddie actually commented in the chat. I'm sorry, guys, that I wasn't reading those. In regards to this Signal Gate situation. So let me pull up his comments real quick.
I've usurped you, Matthew. It's mine now.
So Maddie Ice says, somebody may have added a mole to the chat. Laura Loomer has pointed out that Alex Wong Laura Luma has pointed out Alex Wong as this potential person. So Chamath actually talks about this. So let me pull up his take. All right. If you guys want to go over this, it's quite a bit to read, but Chamath tends to hit it on the head.
I'll read it. Kyle, do you want to turn over Ronan to his mama?
Yep. I'll go hand him over.
All right. So, the neocon warmonger playbook. When peace starts to look inevitable, try to turn any issue, no matter how contorted you have to get to do it, back towards the merchants of peace to get them sidelined. This signal issue has nothing to do with Witkoff, but Witkoff has everything to do with Trump's agenda to end the wars. And this is what the neocons and their bidders at the Wall Street Journal really care about. For what it's worth, I think it's valuable to see their playbook in broad daylight. See the highlighted section below. Lessons from the Signal affair. I don't know if I can read that.
Let's see. I'm going to click on it. Okay. Here it says, can you read it?
Yeah. A real security scandal is that the Signal chat apparently included Steve Witkoff, Mr. Trump's envoy to wars in the Middle East and Ukraine. Press reports say Mr. Witkoff was receiving these messages on the commercial app while in Moscow. This is security malpractice. Russian intelligence services must be listening to Mr. Witkoff's every eyebrow flutter. This adds to the building perceptions that Mr. Witkoff, the president's friend from New York, is out of his depth in dealing with world crises. Okay.
Let's go to the comments.
So
we don't have Matty Ice here.
We don't have Matty Ice, but so what? So this guy who's the friend of the president doesn't actually hold any kind of an office, was on these chats while he was in Moscow, and they are afraid that the FSB was listening or seeing these chats and getting some private information or some secure information about our ideas about war. What was the thing?
I think what Chamath is saying essentially is that these warmongers are essentially trying to sideline the current administration with a rather, a small issue, something that's not very relevant, not very, pressing, but they're blowing out of proportion because they essentially want to sideline this administration. So he says they are.
The thing in the newspaper was the neocons
right.
That I read. That last thing that highlighted. I got you. Okay.
Right. So I think he's 100% correct.
They're trying to make something out of nothing.
Right. Just to smear the current administration to essentially go back to, funding Ukraine.
Right.
What a dirty, dirty
or to try and convince the American
Political
public that the Trump
landscape.
administration doesn't know how to keep a secret and doesn't know anything about the international politics and the dangers of war.
Yep. So here, SM Honk says, if we played by the left's rules, then no one should be fired. The Biden cabinet did so much damage to Americans that in a lot of cases, they ceased to exist. Now let's talk about the Obama years, Benghazi, Clinton, and beyond. These hysterical leftists need to give it a rest. Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. There's so many actual, serious treasonous events that are being ignored, and then they're blowing this one out of proportion. It's yet another hoax.
I think the going back and forth doesn't help either. Just finger pointing each and every time.
Yeah, right. We're trying to address the actual issues and not keep, distracting with other stuff. So
what was the issue? He was using an app that like a
Signal. It was the Signal app.
okay.
Yeah.
which is apparently encrypted, right? So it's a secure form of communication. But yeah, apparently the conversation was leaked. So let's
Wait a
move
minute.
on.
What's that? Hold on. Elon says at XAI. Is that a new company? At XAI has acquired X in an all-stock transaction. The combination values XAI at 80 billion and X at 33 billion, 45 billion less $12 billion in debt. Since its founding 2 years ago, XAI has rapidly become one of the leading AI labs in the world, building models and data centers at unprecedented speed and scale. X is the digital town square where more than 600 million active users go to find the real-time source of ground truth, and in the last 2 years has been transformed into one of the most efficient companies in the world, positioning it to deliver scalable future growth. XAI and X's futures are intertwined. Today, we officially take the step to combine the data, models, compute, distribution, and talent. This combination will unlock immense potential by blending XAI's advanced AI capability and expertise with X's massive reach. The combined company will deliver smarter, more meaningful experiences to billions of people while staying true to our core mission of seeking truth and advancing knowledge. This will allow us to build a platform that doesn't just reflect the world, but actively accelerates human progress. I would like to recognize the hardcore dedication of everyone at XAI and X that has brought us to this point. This is just the beginning. Thank you for your continued partnership and support. So it's now XAI, but I guess they're going to keep the company name X so that they can distinguish the platform from the AI, right?
That or they're going to have it as a subsidiary. So depending on the legal structure that they set this up with, and if it's saying XAI acquired X, I don't know. It really depends on the legalese that happened when they did the signature. No matter what, they could always do a DBA, doing business as, and leave it as X.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe it's similar to like when Google went from Google to Alphabet, and then it had all the different products it had in different companies.
Yeah. I bet. Yeah. Well, so Elon's conglomerates are consolidating into a bigger. I wonder. Let's put that out there. Put the tweet when Tesla buys XAI.
I'm guessing XAI is Grok is a product of XAI.
Yeah.
Of course, it's their that's their language model, and it has that unique advantage of essentially being able to scrape all the data on X in real time, and this will allow for it to continue. But this is a funny post by Autism Capital. He just says TLDR, right?
Yeah, that's basically what's happening. Like, I'm curious as to why he chose to do this. If he really wanted to, he could have renamed X to XAI. There's no reason he had to form a company to buy it. I mean, maybe there's certain legal and tax reasons, but
I'm sure it's a lot to do with that, yes. But
Yeah.
there probably is also some benefit to keeping. There probably was some benefit to starting a new company because of the liabilities and associated with owning X and all of the heat that it got in the initial stages after he bought it, right? And all of the legal battles that it's gone through. So starting XAI as a separate company probably helped to create that separation that they needed, especially since XAI's got so much capital invested in those compute assets.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, we're not going to really say much change on anything. It's just stuff shuffling in the background.
Yeah, they
On
must
the
be.
front side, I don't see any changes.
They must feel like the liability
Today on how fucked
concerns about whatever those concerns were about X are dissipated.
I like how X makes it really easy for developers to tap into their APIs and pull information. So much cool, especially with the AI part. There's so many cool things you can do with it as an account itself, as an X account itself.
Mm-hmm.
Have your own personal representative behind your account to respond to messages with trained data and information.
Oh, is that just feeding into the dead internet theory? All of the users on X are just going to be AI bots that interact on behalf of the users. So it's going to be robots talking to robots.
Well, I think there's a payments thing coming up in there, right?
Mhm.
So the AI integrated with Twitter.
Well, they're also we're talking about getting like Bitcoin payments going through and tips and whatnot. I was watching that for a while, and I thought they announced they had done it, but I don't remember. I haven't seen it in ages, so maybe it just was in the initial stages, and then they petered out and they stopped it.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if someday we'll be talking to our robots through the X platform.
Sure.
So here's
paying our robot insurance through the X platform.
dude,
Get your UBI insurance or payments from the robots.
what are they called? Is it the Optimus or something?
Optimus, yeah.
Optimus. I can't wait for that. Something to do, fold my laundry and, mop the floors.
Oh yeah, there's
They got
somebody
those.
was joking online, and they're like, I wanted robots so that they could do my dishes and fold my laundry, not so it could paint paintings and write songs, so that I can go and fold my laundry.
Something's happening with that though. It's opening the door for a lot of young or just people in general to come in and create on a whole nother level where you don't need all the production or all the extra stuff that you needed in the past. It's just another way that technology is being integrated with our day-to-day tasks where you're able to do a lot more. When like back in the day you had building a website, you had to learn a language, HTML, write it all out from core, from the basic template, and then you had no code ways like Wix and all these other companies that came along that simplified that process. Now I think we'll start to see new creatives come out with their own shows or production essentially where they can create videos with just one person, one man team. So I think that's going to create a whole new market, a whole new dynamic in this industry and in social media, the way we consume content.
Well, one thing that somebody realized and pointed out is if you ask an AI model to generate a full to the brim wine glass, it can't do it because all the pictures of wine glasses, they're filled up, like an inch or two, and then they have all the open gaps. So when you tell it fill it up all the way, it doesn't know what to do. It freaks out because it doesn't have any pictures of that.
If you need it for yourself, you can train your own AI and you can.
Well, no, you'd have to go and to go get a
Yes.
wine glass, fill it up all the way, and then take a bunch of pictures and then hand it to the AI and say, "Hey, this is a full wine glass."
All right, we're going to
Put it
try
somewhere else.
this right now on Grok, on ChatGPT, and see who can get the job done.
What, you're gonna try and ask it to render a full wine glass? Yeah,
Full to
Correct.
the brim.
Keep the third L in there.
All right, going first with Grok. But that is an interesting point you bring up, Kyle. It's essentially trained on what is there, and it doesn't quite have the ability yet to go outside of those guidelines.
Well,
And that's that whole AGI,
Yeah,
advancement.
I mean, I wonder if it could do it if you told it to have a wine cup that's full to the brim with grape juice or something like that.
All right.
Yeah, it couldn't. It can't do it because it doesn't have anything to reference.
I think that's why training your own AI is important as well for your own specific needs if you're going to be using it every day or integrating it into your everyday use.
Okay, I'm telling it once more. I want the wine to be all the way to the brim, almost overflowing. Meanwhile, we'll kick up GBT.
So the whole point of artificial intelligence is that it learns from new experiences just like we humans do. It's artificial intelligence versus actual intelligence. And artificial intelligence has the ability to learn even faster.
Is that it's overflowing?
It's
through
overflowing through the empty part of the
Alright,
glass.
Your
Yeah.
point has been made.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm not gonna log into GPT right now just to show. You know,
That is funny.
Mhm. Yeah, it's going through the glass, but it's still not full to
So
the brim.
now somebody out there or one of us has to go home and fill up a wine glass and take a picture and upload it to Grok
Well,
and write
yeah.
the same thing.
That or a bunch of people are going to have to do that, and then it's going to get thrown into CAPTCHA stuff. All right, pick all the images with the wine glass that has filled full to the brim, so everyone can train the model on that.
That's right.
Yes, but it's so my point that I was trying to make is that it's going to learn from itself. So like this is an interesting little experiment that I don't know where you heard about it, but it's true. So you're right, but we can train this AI how to create a picture of a full wine glass if we choose to do so. But the fact that so many humans are using AI every day, it is, and the fact that so many humans are creating new content every day, the AI can compile all that content together and then have something new to tell us tomorrow, and even newer to tell us the next day. I mean, I was floored when I heard this. It was probably 10 years ago when I first learned about how the Tesla systems work, where every single Tesla in the fleet out there driving is sending data back to the central servers, and that AI is learning and learning and learning. And so Teslas have, at least the higher end ones have adjustable air shocks. And so I heard that there's this one place in New York City where there's a driveway that you go over, and if the shocks don't raise up or whatever, go down a ramp or something, and the bottom can scrape. And so it only took like 2 or 3 times for different Teslas to go over that. And then after that, any Tesla that hit that exact spot, the air things automatically raised up so it wouldn't scrape. So it was continuously learning. And that, I mean, so you think about the fleet that's been out there for years and years and years and years now. But how long has Tesla had cars out there? 10 years, a good decade or so. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I knew a guy who had one in like 2018 or something like that. So, and that was already, they'd been out for several years. So
as far as physical aspects of the road that it's traveling on, they must know everything, right?
Close to, oh wow, 2003.
That's when it was owned by a couple of guys.
No,
No,
the
it's
Roadster, 2008. We'll say 2008.
Yeah, but the mass production of the Model S and the Model X. I mean, yeah, the Model S
yeah,
and Model X.
Model S came out in 2012.
There you go.
It just goes to show how important data is and collecting data and what can be done with data. I saw a cool meme or post. It was saying how data is the oil of the new industrial era, or the modern digital era, whatever we call it.
Mm-hmm.
And analytics are like the engine. So it's interesting to see how data is becoming more and more a part of our everyday, learning and building.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, guys, let's close out with bringing some more clarity. Real quick here, Tesla began offering self-driving cars in 2015. But just to get some clarity on the signal situation. I saw another post. Maybe we can close out with this.
Yeah, let's do that.
Go.
Oh,
Is this the post?
Well, here is the this is currently trending. So I thought that's interesting. This is news to me that they are trying to get Pete Hegseth to resign over this. You know, once again, it's probably leftist outlets really
It is. Well,
just driving
critics,
hysteria.
critics, including Elizabeth Warren and Tammy Duckworth, are calling for his dismissal, citing concerns over national security. Conversely, Hegseth has received significant support from conservative figures on social media who claim the criticism is politically motivated. The situation involves a broader context of political rivalry, say that 3 times, with figures like Mike Waltz mentioned, but not facing similar calls for resignation. So, yeah.
I mean, I kind of just don't give them any credence when it comes to talking about, oh, you're incompetent in the job, you should step down.
Mm-hmm.
We had Pete Buttigieg, who was the transportation secretary, and we had the train derailment. There was no calls for him to step down.
Right.
We had Biden that was mentally incapacitated running our office. You know, everyone realized that in the last couple months, and no one said, hey, you should step down.
Right. Until the very last minute.
Oh, no. I mean, they only said that like in the last week or so, just so
Yeah.
Kamala Harris could be the first female president and like cement that in there. So,
Fact.
like, I just discount anything they say, which is unfortunate because I'm sure at times they're going to have something important to say, but they just spew so much non-important stuff that I can't believe them anymore. So I just ignore them. And it's going to be to my detriment because eventually they're going to have something important to say, but the boy who cried wolf, I'm
Right.
not listening to you anymore because you've shown that you've just tried to deceive me too many times. So I just don't believe anything you say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Laura Loomer is another one. She says some very good things sometimes and some rather, extra things at other times. But she has quite a interesting post here that is fairly long, but it breaks down essentially who that mole might have been. And she believes that it involves Chinese Alex Wong and Senator Tom Cotton. Tucker Carlson said that Tom Cotton had thrown him under the bus recently as well. So I'm really intrigued by this. I haven't looked into it myself. Do you guys want to touch on this or?
It's just noise.
Yeah, I mean, none of it really matters. From what I can tell, like I think the operation went through and there was no real jeopardy for it. And so there's so many more pressing issues that's going on than this. But
You mean the operation that was being discussed on the Signal chat? Is
Yeah.
that what so that operation actually already completed?
I don't know. I just
Oh.
I don't. That's what I'm saying. I don't know. I don't think whatever they were talking about was jeopardized by this. It was just this is a giant egg on the face of somebody.
Yeah.
Which is not good, but
It's just a
whatever.
distraction. Like it's
Yeah.
all noise. Like the conservatives, the Trump administration, and although their team is maybe slightly less guilty. I don't know, but everybody's creating noise. Everybody's creating distractions. Trump is a master. He is a total master at distracting us from what's really going on.
Mhm.
He loves to do, use his name calling and his.
Well, that's the thing is like they're going all crazy over the Signal Gate. Yet Trump shut down the Department of Education, essentially, not legally, but it's not there any. It's nerfed to what it used to be. He revoked the temporary visas that like 530,000 temporary visas Biden gave to immigrants because they had sponsors or something like that. That's not. No one's talking about that. They're all crazy about Signalgate, and yet there's all these other big momentous things that he's doing, and
which is
the
probably
Democrats are all distracted.
exactly, which is probably his strategy, right?
Yeah.
There's a good argument to be made that he did this thing on purpose, that they set this up on purpose.
Yeah.
So it would distract everyone else from the other really important things that are going on that could cause a whole heck of a lot more ruckus if it made it into the news cycle.
Yep.
But Tom Cotton, just since his name was so familiar, I was like, okay, what did Tucker say? So Tucker said essentially that he had the option to release the Epstein files, or he was involved in one way or another and asked for them to be withheld. He asked, for those to, essentially to not be released. So that is a rather.
So does that make us suspicious that his name is in there?
Well, I think he's.
That or he's been bought out by somebody that is.
Yeah, and based on how he's attacking this whole Signal situation attacking Pete Hegseth, they're trying to undermine the administration. We're not falling for it. People are no longer watching mainstream news, just getting that one narrative shoved down their throat. We are now watching and reading and observing breaking news in real time and engaging and interacting with it. So, yeah, I think the days of Elizabeth Warren are over. Here she is, though. What do you guys think? Is she Native American?
She might be partially Native American, but who cares?
No, I'm just joking.
Are you Native American? Maybe somewhere in your genes.
Well,
You're probably a little Neanderthal in you. That's what you call.
what are Native Americans? If you watch the geographical migration patterns of humans during that time, they're
Right.
essentially Vikings and Asians. That's what they are. You follow the migration patterns. But anyways, it's been fun, everybody. If you want to go support each and every one of these awesome guys, follow them on X. We've got John Michael Drew at John Michael Drew. How the heck did you snag that handle?
I'm a lot older than you guys, and I was on Twitter probably before most of you.
Yeah, probably.
And then we've got Jeff Chirino. Is it with Chirino or Chirino?
Chirino.
All right, got it right. Jeff, Chirno.
Chirino.
I thought there was two I's. Thanks, man. Chirino. That's a cool name.
Chirino.
Chirino.
I gotta say it with the extra I. I'm kidding. Chirino. Very cool. And we've got Stonebreaker, Mr. GDK. God damn it, Kyle. Show them some love. And also share this next time around. We'll be back at 4 p.m. on Wednesday and once again on Friday.
And mark your calendar for June 14th, Bitcoin Day, Tampa, and the Sound Money Soiree.
That's going to be a good time. We've got here. Let me pull up the speaker list real quick. That is quite the speaker list you've got there.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's just getting started. Like, I think there's only, maybe a dozen speakers on the website?
Yeah, it's not.
We're
not many yet,
We're
but
just getting
it's looking
started.
good.
Yeah, there's going to be a great list to go along with that.
So look at that. We've got Gary Cardone. We've got BJ Dichter, Chris Sullivan, John Taylor made the cut. Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the Canadian convoy trucker, essentially the guy who led that convoy, coming to join us. And Gary Cardone, he's obviously orange pilling the masses. He was at Bitcoin Day in Naples last year. So it's great to have him back. And then we've got CJK. We learned some awesome stuff about him recently. Apparently, CJ was one of the top 10 people on the efficiency committee, government efficiency committee that RFK was launching. People were voting on who to join, and his name made it to the top 10. So we want to follow up on that and see where that goes. We'll be staying tuned.
All right. Well, I'll just say thanks for everyone for joining us for this afternoon. And it's been a pleasure, gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Been a pleasure.